You may have heard about or even read Nobel Prize poet and playwright Derek Walcott from the Caribbean island of St. Lucia, who wrote of his island life and, of course, the race and postcolonial politics of it. Some of my favorite poems of his are Midsummer Tobago, Love After Love, The Fist, Far Cry from Africa. Few, though, know or have read or made space for his masterwork, Omeros. Some 300 pages of verse of a single work. Omeros works to capture the history and present of his island, but it hardly stops there. It overlays the island with Homeric epics and colonial history and that political history of race and the ruin of civilizations and his own reflections on language and how it functions and knowledge and the workings of power and so much more. Okay, I'm not finished with it yet, but already those layers are dizzying to the point where a reader can hardly stake out what is metaphor and what's the object of the metaphor. I think that's as he would wish it. What's left is quite an experience, but it's not an undertaking for the weak-willed reader. It sucks us in like some kind of dream state, and then it works on our own cultural memory and justifiably unnerving ways. I want to read 3 sections of it to you, if I can, a few samples. The first is more direct plotting of island events, but will give you a sense of his style. And let's see how this one plays out. Character is Seven Seas. Seven Seas rose in the half-dark to make coffee. Sunrise was heating the ring of the horizon, and clouds were rising like loaves. By the heat of the glowing iron rose, he slid the saucepan's base onto the ring and anchored it there. The saucepan shook from the weight of water in it, then it settled. His kettle leaked. He groped for the tin chair and took his place near the saucepan to hear when it bubbled. It would boil, but not scream like a bosun's whistle, to let him know it was ready. He heard the dog's morning whine under the boards of the house, its tail thudding to be let in, but he envied the pirogues already miles out at sea. Then he heard the first breeze washing the sea almond's wares. Last night there had been a full moon, white as his plate. He saw with his ears. He warmed with the roofs as the sun began to climb, since the disease had obliterated vision when the sunset shook the sea's hand for the last time. And an inward darkness grew where the moon and sun indistinctly altered. He moved by a sixth sense, like the moon without an hour or second hand, wiped clean as the plate that he now began to rinse while the saucepan bubbled. Blindness was not the end. It was not a palm tree's dial on the noon sand. This second part I'd like to read comes from much later in the book, and it overlays one of the storylines out of Homeric epics where Helen, whose beauty somehow represents the island itself, an island fought over between two nations historically, but this island beauty has its own attitude. Maud nodded as amiably as she could, but with one palm covered over an excessive squint. So, how are you, Helen? I dare, madam. Oh, at last. You dare. Of course you dare. Come back looking for work after ruining 2 men, after trying on my wardrobe, after driving Hector crazy with a cutlass. You dare come? Then that what you mean? We've no work, Helen. Is not what I looking for. Pride edged that voice. She honed her arrogance on Maud's nerves when she worked here, but there was sorrow in the old rudeness. Helen tore the stalk in her hands. What I come for this morning is see if you can borrow me $5. I'm pregnant. I will pay you next week. Maud went as purple as one of her orchids. I see. How'll you pay me back, Helen, if you're out of work? It's none of my business, but what happened to Achille? Hector not working? I am vexed with both of them, What was it in men that made such beauty evil? She was as beautiful as a liner, but like it, She changed her course. She turned her back on her friends. "I'll fetch my purse," Maud said. Helen turned her back and stared out to sea. This is how all beauty ends. When Maud came with the money, she was down the track with the arrogant sway of that hip, stern high in the line of the turned liner. Maud stood, enraged, in the sun. Then she picked up the flowers Helen had wrenched from the vine. The alamandus lasted 3 days. Their trumpets would bend and their glory pass. But she'd last forever, Helen. This last part I'd like to read settles us back more into Walcott's lyricism. It's the answer a speaker's father gives his son about the meaning of the future and of death. "So you mind your business, which is life and work like theirs, but I will say this. O thou, my zero, is an impossible prayer. Utter extinction is still a doubtful conceit. Though we pray to nothing, nothing cannot be there. Kneel to your load, then balance your staggering feet, and walk up that coal ladder as they do in time, one bare foot after the next, an ancestral rhyme. Because rhyme remains the parentheses of palms, shielding a candle's tongue. It is the language's desire to enclose the loved world in its arms, or heft a coal basket. Only by its stages, like those groaning women, will you achieve that height whose wooden planks and couplets lift your pages higher than those hills of infernal anthracite. There, like ants or angels, they see their native town, unknown, raw, insignificant. They walk, you write. Keep to that narrow causeway without looking down, climbing in their footsteps that slow ancestral beat of those used to climbing roads. Your own work owes them, because the couplet of those multiplying feet made your first rhymes. Look, they climb and no one knows them. They take their copper pittances, and your duty from the time you watched them from your grandmother's house as a child wounded by their power and beauty is the chance you now have to give those feet a voice. Omeros by Derek Walcott. Make some space for it.